Awesome. Welcome everyone to Mindset Mastery with Give to Get. So my name is Stefan Neff. Before we do that, I'm going to do a little bit of intro of who I am and what I'm all about. So just give me, I'm going to share my screen here. All right. Here we go. And welcome everyone. And thank you for participating today. All right. So welcome to Mindset Mastery with Stefan Neff. So who is Stefan Neff? Well, I was born and raised in Langley, British Columbia. What a beautiful day it is today. I got two children. My oldest is Brandon and my youngest is Steven. So who's Stefan? Well, I had alcohol and drug addiction for 35 years until I found a solution that worked. It's called Smart Recovery, Self-Management and Recovery Training based on science using CBT and Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, means REBT, that works. So today we're going to talk about why trust and forgiveness builds healthy relationships. So I'm going to stop sharing and then we're going to get into our presentation for today. So let's go. Here we go. So what we're going to talk about today is trust and forgiveness. And please take notes because I have some questions I'll be asking to throughout this, and you can pause it when I ask you to pause it when you're watching the recording back. Okay, great, thanks. Trust and forgiveness. Lost trust is a common issue for families and friends of loved ones with unwanted addictive behaviors. They experience feelings of disappointment, frustration, hurt, anger over their loved ones' behaviors. They may find themselves walking on eggshells, unable to trust their ability to predict their loved one's emotional response. They may be concerned for their own financial security or physical safety, as they are unable to trust their loved ones to be respectful of their needs in these areas. They are consistently unreliable and untruthful communicators. I was one of them. That often accompany addictions. Yes, I can understand that. This happens with enormous emotional impact to families and friends surrounding them, that one takes a long time to heal within themselves. Expectation and acceptance. So what does that mean? For families and friends to hold on to expectations that they should be able to trust their loved ones who has addictions is a unrealistic and a recipe for disappointment. More realistic is a view to accept that broken trust takes a long time to rebuild, and that rebuilding is the responsibility of the loved one, not the families and friends' responsibility. So let's talk about recovery, hope, and trust. Early recovery does restore hope, but hope and trust are not the same thing. It can be very challenging for a families and friends and a loved one in recovery to balance the loved one's desire to be trusted in their recovery efforts with very real needs for the families and friends to fully accept the reality that not every recovery attempt will be 100% successful or 100% immediate. And this often, I've seen this many, many times in my meetings. Everybody wants to get it done, but it takes time, takes practice, takes persistence. Families and friends would also be well to fully accept that even though using has stopped, some old behaviors may linger. It may be some time before the loved one is willing or able to address the challenges needed to rebuild trust in the relationship. Rebuilding trust is not an easy task. After engaging in sometimes years of addiction-related activities and behaviors that have taught their loved ones, or means families and friends, that they may not be trusted, it is not reasonable for a loved one to expect to rebuild trust quickly. Let's talk about a trust bank. So what is a trust bank? It may be helpful to think as a trust in a relationship in the way we think about a bank account. We each are responsible for our own trust banks. Each thoughtful act, each personal communication, each time we keep our word and follow through on our commitments is a deposit into the trust bank. Likewise, for each broken promise, hurtful comment, lie, or misrepresentation is a withdrawal. Your loved one may have been making small deposits over the years, but with addiction, the withdrawals becomes larger and larger, and your loved one account may be overdrawn. I was overdrawing my bank account for years until I realized that I was withdrawing all the time, but I never really noticed it or accepted it. At this point, the trust is lost completely, but not necessarily forever. Over time, with many deposits and fewer or no withdrawals, a positive balance can be restored. Very important. It can be restored. Since we are each responsible for our own account, it is not possible for the concerned significant other to make the deposit into the loved one's trust account. That is the loved one's job. Only your loved one can add to the account and subtract from it. If your loved one chooses to work on rebuilding his or her trust account, it will take a long time to restore and for a healthy balance, just as it would to recover from a bankruptcy. Rebuilding trust is an area where good positive communication on an ongoing basis is required. Your loved one cannot read your mind. This is a huge one. And I will not know what your needs and feelings of confidence in trusting again, unless you communicate that fact. The more specific you can be, the better. Remember to acknowledge your loved one's deposits into the trust account. Reinforce the behavior, truthfulness, integrity, reliability that you want to see more in your relationship with your loved one. Question yourself, what are some ways that your loved one can deposit into the trust bank account? Write them down. What are some ways that your loved one can make a deposit into the trust bank? For me, here's my thought, is I actually had a separate bank account for that reason, for me to purchase my own alcohol. Get a paycheck, had my own bank account. So what I did to build that trust, I closed that bank account and we had a bank account together.
On a scale of 1 to 5, would you give yourself a 5 on achieving what you want in life? If your answer is anything less than a 5, right now, I have something awesome for you. Achieving your goals and living your life at a 5 isn't easy. Most people aren't prepared to focus, stay disciplined, and do the everyday work that is necessary to achieve amazing results. But since you're watching this, then I'm guessing that you're not one of those people. And this is an opportunity that will change your life. Give to Get is a global program that brings together world-class coaching and combines it with empowering masterminds and networking opportunities. We provide 5-star guidance for the price of a cup of coffee a day. To find out more, click on the link in the description of this coaching session.
That built trust. Was it the end result? Was it perfect? I believe it was, because it's continuing to this day. That trust is still building. What do you need from your loved one in order to be able to begin trusting again? It takes honesty. That's my thoughts. It takes honesty. And my wife said to me, you can lie to yourself, you can lie to your family, you can lie to me, love your family, but you know what? Be honest with yourself. And that's what was huge for me. Acceptance and forgiveness. Throughout these videos that I've been sharing, I have presented tools for managing extreme emotions that may interfere with your ability to function well in your lives. I've mentioned acceptance in a few videos before. Another powerful tool that will improve our ability to function and be happy is the one of acceptance, unconditionally. Often we stay stuck in our own emotion upsets because we do not know how to resolve the gap between our expectations and what's actually happening. We may have expectations that our children will grow up and lead happy, productive lives. And when it doesn't happen, the gap between our own expectations, and the reality of our child's choice is difficult to resolve within ourselves. We may have expectations that our spouse will be a loving and supportive partner, only to be dismayed by the reality that addiction makes that difficult or impossible at times. We stay stuck, waiting for something to change, to resolve the situation. You know, it seems paradoxical, but acceptance of what is the prerequisite for change. Acceptance should not be confused with approval of their behaviors. It does not imply liking the situation or being willing to continue allowing to be part of your life. It does mean accepting the reality of the situation, of the other person's behavior, no matter how objectable. Once you have accepted the reality of the situation, you're in a much better position to deal with it effectively, creatively, and positively, and in a way that best benefits you. Okay, let's talk about forgiveness and the importance of forgiveness. What happens when we cannot let go of anger and resentment? Ask yourself this question: what happens? We may spend countless hours reliving the past events and harboring grudges. I can tell because that's what my wife was doing. That's what she said to me. She was harboring grudges continuously until she let go of that fact. We may hold on to those feelings of blaming, where we blame our loved one for the upsets that they're feeling. These thoughts keep us trapped in the role of a victim as we continue to focus on how our loved one has hurt us. Since our emotional energy is focused on the past, we remain powerless to move forward. I'll repeat that one more time. Since our emotional energy is so focused on the past, we remain powerless to move forward. So continually think about the past events can lead to self-defeating behaviors. Could cause anger outbursts, retaliation, sometimes addictions, avoidance, and high level of emotional arousal that is ultimately contributing to serious medical problems in our lives. Could cause heart disease and much, much more in our own lives when it comes down to our health. Over time, the failure to achieve resolution of anger and resentment takes a physical and emotional toll on self. Learning to accept, forgive, and let go of the past hurts is not easy. But neither is living stuck in anger and resentment. Thinking about that. Neither does living stuck in anger and resentment. Exploring options of forgiveness. If you're holding on to past hurts or anger, consider forgiveness as a way to move forward in your life. Forgiveness is not a quick fix. I truly believe that. It's a matter of willingness to change in our thinking about our own demands, that others treat us in a certain way or else. That's a demand way of thinking that causes upset feelings. Think about an incident that has left you feeling angry or hurt that you have trouble letting go of. So I'll go through each one of there's about 8 questions you can ask yourself that I'm going to ask you. And you can pause in after each question and write something down. So you write down the question. Here are the questions. Number 1, how does my anger benefit me? That's the first one. How does anger benefit me? Number 2, what are some reasons to keep being angry? That's number 2. Number 3, how much time and effort does it take to keep anger going? Whew, takes a lot of effort to keep it going. I can know. And ask yourself, does it really help me? That's the second part of 3. Does it really help me to stay angry? Number 4, how does my anger hurt me? Number 5, what might happen to my anger if I could stop having the thoughts of how to correct the unfairness or even how to just get my loved one to apologize? Number 6, if I decide to make a direct and conscious decision to forgive, what benefits might I gain? I'll repeat that one more time. Number 6, If I decide to make a direct and conscious decision to forgive, what benefits might I gain? Number 7, is it possible that with less anger, I would sleep better, eat better, have improved relationships with my family, do better at work or school? That was number 7. Number 8, what are some reasons to let go of anger? What are some reasons to let go of anger? Okay, let's move on to forgiveness helps you move from the past and live for today and build your future that you desire. The forgiveness process. Process of forgiveness, like other types of behavior change. The act of forgiveness is a process, not an event. It starts with conscious choice, followed by internally actions to change your thinking about your loved one and their actions. Decide if forgiveness is best for you. Another question to ask yourself. What outcome can I expect for yourself in continuing to focus on past hurtful events and your feelings of anger and resentment? Consider your answer to this question and the questions that are in when we go back to the acceptance and forgiveness in the section that we're talking about. Decide if you would like to entertain the idea of forgiveness as a strategy to improve your life. When it comes down to acceptance, for me personally, it's one of those feelings of joy when it comes down to acceptance of self, acceptance of others, and acceptance of life. You can go back and watch that video that I did on all 3 of those. Because anger can quickly become toxic, it may be helpful to remember that no one likes to be with an angry and bitter, depressed person. I was one of those individuals. My wife didn't like being around me until I started to shift and change. But am I perfect? There's no perfect in this world. I believe that to be true. Hanging on to past hurts not only interferes with your ability to be happy, it also gets you in the way of your other relationships. So let's define forgiveness. It's just a short little phrase. One reason people may have difficulty with forgiveness may have to do with how they define it. Forgiveness is not the same as trust. Many people link forgiving with forgetting and think that forgetting is required for forgive. But this is not the case. We need to remember what has happened so that we can protect ourselves against further hurts. We can forgive the person, but we would be well to forget the behavior and not well to forget the behavior. I'll give you a little bit of an example. We might forgive someone for stealing, but would be very wise to lock up our valuables the next time they were around. I have a whole part on it that I would like to share, but I'm going to hold it to myself for now. We can forgive the person and accept the past behaviors for the reality that it is. Because we don't forget. We learn that until they show us otherwise through consistent action, would be likewise not to trust them in matters where they have failed to be trustworthy. Forgiveness is not about giving up your choices to work on making it better, making things better. Instead, forgiving requires giving up the wish to have had a different past and taking action in improving our life and overall happiness in the present and in the future. Forgiveness is an act of letting go of anger and resentment in our lives. When we let go, we're able to think about the past events without feeling physical manifestations of anger and without feeling compelled to resort to unhelpful coping mechanisms like drinking, overeating, and sometimes doing drugs. When we let go of the past events, we become more just like another event in our lives and no longer defines who we are. Forgiveness is an act of understanding that no one is perfect and that we all have done things that we may have regretted. Work to understand why others act the way they do. Develop new ways of thinking about your loved one. Work on seeing their point of view at times. Recognize that their actions may make perfect sense to them at the time. Giving what is going on in their lives is something for them to think about. Letting go and move forward. Forgiving is hard work, although your anger might seem justified. At some point, you have to ask yourself, what kind of a person am I? And what is my anger doing for me today? Are you a person who wants to remain a bitter and angry victim? Or do you want to continue spending your time thinking about how you were hurt and how unfair it was? Take a good look at your anger. Accept that what has happened in the past cannot be changed. And remaining angry is hurting more than anyone except it's hurting you more than anyone else. Forgiveness means letting go of hurtful situations and moving on with your own happiness. This quote by Amanda Ford. Start small. If forgiveness is a strategy, it seems very interesting, but it feels not really that natural. You may want to begin by practicing forgiveness in your daily activities in your life. Consider applying it to frustration situations involving maybe you're driving down the street and somebody may be doing something you may not like. But you know what? That aspect of forgiveness. Consider applying it to fellow shoppers if you're walking down the road, or sorry, down an aisle and they're walking the wrong way because we have little arrows that are pointing everywhere else. Maybe they didn't see it. Maybe they didn't see the arrows. Maybe they're so focused on something in their own lives. Maybe coworkers that have behaved maybe less considerate ways. Working on that continuously, but in small and in little increments. Work on recognizing that they had a reason that made their actions seem appropriate to them. A final thought for today. Forgiveness means changing your mental, emotional, and behavioral reactions. When you forgive, you think in different and better ways about the life of the person you offended and angered you. You think about the forces that led that person to behave badly. Over time, you begin to feel less angry when the problem comes into your consciousness. And you might even act to people in a person that offended you in some way. I hope you consider forgiveness as a way to reducing some of your anger in your own life. When I'm able to forgive myself, which is not always easy, I am kinder to everyone, including myself. Thank you, everyone. If you want to learn more about what Smart Recovery is about, visit smartrecovery.org to learn more about families and friends, because this is based on craft on the families and friends aspect of it. If you want to learn more to help your loved ones, there's also the Smart Recovery regular meetings around the world, in Canada, United States, and like I said, around the world.